Welcome to Cultural Connections Lab. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Forbes. We are here to talk with educational professionals around the world to impact and influence the education system as we focus on cultural connections and the education of multilingual, diverse students. We're excited to have you join us today, and we sincerely hope that you enjoy the show.
Hey there, listeners. Are you ready to take your school district to new heights? Introducing EduSkills, the leading software as a service platform for Title III and multilingual support in education. Having been a director of English language development for a school district, I was honored and privileged to get to use EduSkills. EduSkills understands the importance of equitable education and empowering multilingual learners to thrive in today's classrooms. Their cutting-edge technology provides school districts across the nation with the tools they need to enhance language acquisition, foster inclusivity, and improve academic outcomes. With their seamless implementation and comprehensive support, I have witnessed EduSkills ensure a smooth transition for school districts, empowering their educators to provide targeted instruction and personalized support. So why wait? Unlock the potential of your school district today with EduSkills. Visit their website, eduskillsllc.com, or call them at 405-879-9898 to schedule a demo. EduSkills, transforming education one student at a time. Welcome to another podcast with myself, your host, Dr. Kelly Forbes with Cultural Connections Lab. It has been a while since we have been together, and I am excited to come back for this new season with some very dear friends of mine with us right now. We have Alicia Blair, Tracy Hoover, and Stephanie Skidmore. Alicia Blair, she is an educational consultant, advocate, and co-founder of SustainED LLC and is deeply committed to empowering students and equipping educators with the tools that they need to succeed. Throughout her career, she has championed the use of innovative educational resources, including emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, to create inclusive and dynamic learning environments that inspire both students and teachers. At 15, her perspective was forever altered whenever she went from regular education into needing significant medical support overnight. Through emerging educational technology and very dedicated educators, she was able to overcome challenges and graduate. These experiences fueled her compassion for accessible and inclusive education utilizing tools such as AI. With many years of experience as a principal, instructional leader, and teacher, she's been honored by her ability to foster collaboration, drive student achievement, and implement impactful strategies that improve educational outcomes. And her passion lies in breaking barriers, learning to ensure every student and educator, regardless of their abilities, has access to opportunities that help them thrive. We also have another guest with us today. There are three total. The next up we have up is Tracy Hoover. Tracy Hoover is originally from Southern California, sunny Southern California, I should say, and proudly called Oklahoma her home for the past 18 years. Her journey into education started with a passion for science and a love of animals. At one point, she even dreamed of being a veterinarian. That's what I wanted to be as well. However, she discovered her true calling was in education, and she has had this opportunity to ignite curiosity and inspire lifelong learning in others. She holds a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology and a master of science in teaching, learning, and leadership. With over a decade of experience as a middle school science teacher and instructional coach, an amazing one at that, she specializes in creating innovative, student-centered learning environments and helping educators reach their fullest potential. Her work focuses on utilizing data-driven, student-centered strategies, fostering collaboration through professional learning communities and teaming, and empowering both students and teachers to thrive. She was honored to be named Teacher of the Year during her third year in the classroom, a recognition that still inspires her to bring the best to every opportunity. She's a firm believer in continuous growth and enjoying leading professional development sessions that help educators easily implement evidence-based practices. She's especially passionate about connecting classroom content to real-world experiences, ensuring that learning is both engaging and meaningful. And last but not least, we have Stephanie Skidmore. She's a dedicated educator and brings a wealth of experience to students and teachers achieving their fullest potential. Originally from Colorado, the great state of Colorado, she came to Oklahoma for her college and began her career teaching, her teaching journey in Moscow, Russia, a transformative experience that cultivated her passion for building meaningful relationships and fostering student growth. Now, while she initially thought that she'd teach second grade or English language arts, she found herself in the middle of the math classroom where she spent over a decade creating engaging instruction and helping students develop critical thinking skills. Driven by the belief that better teachers create stronger outcomes for students, she transitioned into instructional coaching to amplify her impact. In this role, she empowered educators by designing innovative systems, providing personalized support, and leveraging data to drive growth. Her work focuses on improving teacher effectiveness and longevity, creating stronger and more sustainable learning environments for all. And she's particularly passionate about helping educators and navigating the rapidly evolving landscape of educational technology. Such as AI, these tools become increasingly prevalent in life and in education, and she works closely with teachers to develop practical strategies for integrating these tools effectively, which I've experienced side by side with her. She's incredible at this. And so whether that is using AI to streamline lesson planning, provide personalized feedback for students, or create differentiated learning materials. Her approach emphasizes maintaining authentic teaching practices while leveraging technology to enhance rather than replace teacher expertise. That is a big introduction, but it's a big introduction for three big, amazing educators. And I have to admit, incredible, amazing best friends of mine. I'm so grateful to have the three of you here. Thank you so much, Alicia, Tracy, and Stephanie, for being on Cultural Connections Lab.
Thank you for having us.
So excited.
Well, I'm happy that we get to be here today. Listeners, just so you know, these individuals are people, and we will have their consulting information linked at the bottom of the description of this episode. But the company is called Sustained Impact. And if you need any help or support, I promise you, these three leaders in education are more than able and willing to help support you, your district, yourself personally, any of your needs at all, with true, not only research-based, but evidence-based practices that help with our desired outcomes for our students. So again, I'm glad to have you all here today, and I'm excited to have a conversation around culture and the role that it plays in providing this equitable education for all of our students, and how things such as artificial intelligence can help support us in doing that, considering the roles that you all have occupied yourselves, such as principal, instructional coach, classroom teacher, and also consultant as well. So again, welcome and thank you for being here. I'm really excited. We had discussed a little bit ahead of time. What are some of the things that you are most passionate about in education? And how does that relate to what you all are doing today and how you help support the greater landscape of education? Would anyone like to go first? Stephanie, I saw you.
I can. I was pointing to somebody else, but
you volunteered yourself and didn't know it.
That. You mentioned I love being an instructional coach because I get to support teachers, and great teaching matters. Like, I truly believe in our education system with great teachers. That's what helps our students become great. And education is just so constantly changing and evolving, and that support has as well, whether it's knowing the difference between what our students need now versus when we were back in the classroom, and that is not just interchangeable. It can't just be, I learned this way, so my students will learn this way, and knowing who our students are. To also navigating technologies like artificial intelligence, and that how does that change how we teach, what we teach, and kind of informs how it can be a help to us, and how we can respond to something that is changing so rapidly for our students and for teachers.
Yeah, I think that you talk about how great teachers matter, and they definitely do matter. And the big thing that our great teachers need all the time is the gift of time. And so it is true that that's the one other big takeaway, is that whenever you leverage this, it helps save a whole lot of time, a whole lot. Tracy, how about you? What are some other things that are really important to you in the field of education, and how did it get you to where you are and what you're doing today with Sustained?
Oh, that's a big question. I think that one of the things that I try to focus on the most as an instructional coach when I work with other teachers is being able to empower them in the sense that they have the autonomy in their classroom and they are capable of making decisions that need to be made in real time. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, higher-ups start to reduce our teachers and also our students into a number. They just become data points on a large plot, and you're kind of losing that human aspect. And teachers oftentimes don't feel like they have the ability to do what's best for their students in the moment because they have this long list of items that have been given to them that they're supposed to accomplish every single day. And so I really like to work alongside them and let them realize it's okay to take a step back, to really get a survey of what's happening in front of you in the moment and what do we need to do for our students in regards to that. And it's not always academic. Sometimes it's we need to take a step back in what's going on in the world right now, and we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to be able to prepare our students to be citizens and functioning citizens and someone who can go out and represent themselves and their community and their background in such a powerful way. That can look very different for a lot of different people. I know that one of the schools that we work with is really focused on those multilingual learners, and everything that they do for them is going to help every student in the entire building. And so I really like to just let teachers know that they have the autonomy to make those decisions that are appropriate for their students. And obviously, I'm going to give them tools to do that with all of the evidence-based strategies that we can find for them that are going to fit their personality, because that's another big thing I believe in, is that we have this huge platter of strategies that we always provide for our teachers, but it doesn't always match their personality. And so trying to make them become someone they're not is never going to work, ever. Kids are going to see right through that. So really trying to figure out who they are as a person, who they are as an educator, and building upon their strengths. That's what I like to do.
And you're good at it.
You are. You're both incredibly good at it. But I think that's like an important message to remember, and a good through line is that the teachers have to feel very comfortable and confident in what they're doing. Like, because the way that I would present something and implement a strategy or do something would be very different, because anyone who knows me personally knows that if there's a box, I'm probably way out of that box. So I would do it in a whole different way. But I can still use that same strategy that just suits who I am and my personality in the same way that teachers can do that, right? However, that's going to be the same for our students as well. There are going to be different ways that they're going to be able to show their mastery and their understanding, because it's going to be more based on kind of who they are and from where they're coming from. And so I think that leveraging all of this also helps with this concept of differentiation that we often discuss and talk about, but don't always necessarily define, or not necessarily define, but maybe just show in such a way where a teacher could articulate back what that means for them and how they're going to be differentiating, just in the same way that we want teachers to be able to differentiate for themselves. All this comes back to Hattie's research of teacher collective efficacy and self-efficacy, and what that means for us whenever we have autonomy in what we're doing, and we can actually be practicing within that realm of that efficacy that's needed for us to be the best educators possible, to help our students with the best outcomes possible. Now, we also have Alicia here, and I'm excited because we have learned from Stephanie and from Tracy their passions in education and what has brought them here and why they're doing what they're doing. And I'm excited to hear from you as well, because you come at this, as we all do, from a very unique experience. But as in your bio, there was an educational experience that happened personally as well that has impacted not only how you taught, but I'm sure, of course, how you also lead.
Yeah, so I mean, I have several passions. I've been very fortunate to work in several different environments that were quite different from each other. And so I just feel like it just keeps building. But I became disabled at 15. So obviously I have a soft spot in my heart for disabled students, disabled teachers, etc. And then I started as a para. And so then I became a teacher. And I think throughout all that, I've just really come to really believe that student learning is teacher work environment affects student learning. And so if your teachers are overburdened, stressed out, not in a position that is sustainable, then that's going to affect student learning outcomes, student learning in general, student behavior in general. And so we have to focus on, if your teachers cannot experience joy in their job, then it's going to affect your student learning. And I think that gets lost in the sauce of all the things. And there's so many things.
Why can't we just laugh more?
And we forget, there should be fun. There should be downtime. There should be time to connect. There should be, things that make people want to come to work, want to come to school, and that gets things and push us in a upward trajectory on student learning, but then also allow for it to be enjoyable for everybody.
Now, I think that is one of the big components is that everyone forgets that things can still be fun. It doesn't have to be, you can still get the job done. As the principal, I would always say, I can be the cruise director and we can still be on a cruise ship, but we're going to get to every port very, very safely. We're going to make sure that we get everything done that we need to get done, and it's going to be safe doing it. We're all going to have a good time in the meantime. So yeah, don't forget to have a good time. There was something that was brought up, though, that I want to just touch on real quickly. And I think, so the idea of culture and culture that is relevant in our schools. And this is culture, whether it be a geographical location, it can be linguistic, it could be just different groups and identities of people, right? So there's culture within culture. But we think about how important that is for us to have in our schools and to be present. And so we do leverage AI in ways to help support that. But then we come back to this whole aspect of what, Alicia, you were just talking about, that principals are dealing with so much. And then Tracy had mentioned this too, that the teachers therefore feel so much. And it all feels like it's so much one, how do we balance this question of, I want to maintain an institution, institutionalized cultural knowledge in my school and have it be ever, relevant and prevalent according to the students that are right there, and also to teach about cultures around us. But I'm also stuck in this time constraint of all of this testing that we have. And I think I even wrote here this note, testing consumption. I don't know, Tracy, if you said consumption or not, but that's what I was getting from what you were saying about how sometimes all the testing time can take away from you. So what are things that you hear from teachers, and what are any potential solutions that you have? And then in this case, maybe leveraging AI to help balance, still doing what you need to do with integrity, but having cultural relevance in the meantime throughout that, balancing with this time constraint that we have, having so much to have to do centered around specifically testing. So when wait time is so awkward, y'all. Good strategy also for the classroom. See, it takes us time to be what? I'm going to pull out some popsicle sticks right here and call you.
Oh, no.
I think that's there's nuance to it all, right? That's been one of my buzzwords within education. You need nuance when it comes to AI. I don't like AI in a creative space. I will always want to honor artists and the work that they do and not use AR art in that. But when I look at a teacher and what we look and everything that is on their plate and everything they are asked to do, and then we take away time for testing and we say, but we need it to be exactly X, Y, Z. Sometimes it's overwhelming. And then that use of AI as a think partner of, hey, I need this, how could it work, to start sparking some ideas, I think is a really powerful tool to just alleviate some of that pressure and allow us to focus on the more human aspect of teaching. If it can help me plan the XYZ that I need to do, that I can also weave in culture and make sure I'm honoring my students and where they're from and their backgrounds and what they are bringing to the classroom and integrate that into my lessons. And AI can do that for me really quickly. And then it frees me to see my student for who they are and to be like, hey, I saw you struggling with this, and allow for that moment of connection because I have that bandwidth, because it wasn't spent figuring out exactly down to that minutia that we need to have figured out, that our teachers need to have that planned. But if we can lean on AI as a tool, an aid, and to help us kind of rethink. I know everybody's really scared of AI in the classroom and well, it's just going to do the work for our students. And there's definitely that possibility if we're not asking them to do high quality work. I love the idea, if they can cheat with AI, we probably need to ask a better question so that we can be teaching them higher order thinking skills and critical thinking versus just how to get to an informational answer.
Could be happening for us, not to us, right? make us push our thinking about how to ask better questioning.
Yeah, like people talk about the research paper, right? And I don't
Yeah.
like outside of an academic setting, how much research papers do we write? And I would argue not a lot, like
Just for
outside of the
school.
academic setting.
Yeah.
But what if instead of saying, hey, I want you to write a research paper that, yes, AI can write for your student, what if you said, hey, pick your topic and have 2 different large language models write it, and I'd like you to compare and contrast and find the inaccuracies.
Mm-hmm.
Then they are leveraging AI. We are teaching our students how to be responsible for it, but then we're also asking them to use it in a way that's going to benefit them and help them to be critical thinkers and prepare them for the real world, right? Like Tracy talked about that. Like, how do we bring our students not just like in school as a school setting, but give them these real world opportunities? And I think there is space for AI to help with that.
Well, and one, there are going to be people out there that are going to write articles and publish them in newspapers and in magazines and things of that nature and blogs online. And so, yeah, we need to make sure that we can learn how to write and do that and not just lean on AI for that. However, though, I think, and we forget sometimes that like reading makes us better writers. And so coupling that idea with the idea of going ahead and leaning into AI, and because I feel like the more that you become engaged with AI when it comes to considering how you can leverage it to help in your teaching practices, one, it becomes not as scary. So you kind of demystify some of the perceptions or the preconceived notions that maybe you had before. But 2, you realize how much it can be a tool. And then 3, since you start to play with it so much, you could recognize if someone in your class is cheating. Because you know what the AI response already looks
Absolutely.
like. I mean, and so I feel like if you just jump in and play with it,
Right.
1, it'll demystify a whole bunch of those worries that you had before. But then 2, at the same time, it really is going to help you create these different spaces where you can build upon the tools that you already have in your toolbox to leverage those strategies, but just to do so in a way that can be maybe linguistically and culturally responsive, or if nothing else, just more fun and entertaining for the kids and for yourself.
I feel like every time a new
Yeah,
tool
and
comes
you are able
around,
to-
just in general, society like pushes back, right? So calculators, when they had the speaking programs that typed for people, I was one of the first users of that program. And people freaked out. It's not fair. She doesn't have to type. I'm like, I can't type. My hand doesn't work. And they were like obsessed with me having to do that. So it's just weird. People were obsessed for a long time about not using calculators in math class. You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. Remember your teacher telling you that, you guys? Yes, we do. 100%. Yes, we do. Society changes and grows. And I feel like there's always this lag in education to try to keep up with that, just because there's like this idea of, well, I had to do it, so that's not fair that you don't have to do it. And so I really do think like that's at least half of what's pushing the narrative of like resisting AI. I mean, there are definitely other issues with AI that we can totally get into, but I do think at least half of it is just like that quote unquote fair. I had to write in cursive. These kids need to write in cursive. I had to write essays, with just my brain and some books. You need to be able to write essays with just your brain and some books. And it's like, well, if we have tools that make things easier, obviously people are going to use them. So why would we not want to make our kids more proficient with tools that are going to be available?
Do you mind repeating that last part that you just said?
I don't remember.
Well, there was just a little lag. It'll record all
I
together.
bet it
so that's
was
no big
super
deal.
smart and thoughtful.
I'm sure.
Always.
Everything you say is always super smart and thoughtful.
I think I said if there are tools available, like why would we resist that so heavily?
Right.
Using a tool that is going to be available? Like this idea that tool is like a fad that's going to like come and then now it's not really going to be available. I just don't think that that's ever been the trajectory.
No.
And I think on that though, you want people to use tools well, right? I
Yes.
am not like somebody that uses a lot of like power tools and saws. So you would need to teach me a lot before I could use it effectively versus like, hey, here you go. But with AI, sometimes we do that. We say it's here. Our kids are using it. It's on their phones. We use it all the time for things. But I think there's a lot of importance on how do we use it? Are we using it well? Are we teaching our students to use it well? We're from the generation that you couldn't use Wikipedia as a source, check all your sources, that I feel like our students don't experience that same rigor and source checking, but it needs to be shifted to, well, what questions are you asking? What biases are coming through? Because it is trained on a system that has biases in the data that AI was using. So we have to equip both teachers and students with the tools and the whereabouts to be able to recognize that and assess that and say, like, this is a good output, or to challenge an output, because AI is not perfect and AI will hallucinate. And when you're taking it, it's not like Google. It's not just an index of information. It's giving you what it thinks is the next right word. So it's very easy for it to hallucinate, which I think is an interesting thing as a teacher. It's great for ideas, but if you're using it as a source of something, like, make sure to check those sources.
Well, yeah, because it still thinks I'm a girl because my name is Kelly. So, yes.
Yeah.
Go back and double check. Speaking of all of those things that we were saying before, this is like all tools before that people thought were gonna like mess up education. I was going to sum up real quickly. The chalkboard, everyone was worried about that because thought that it would distract students from making individual recitation obsolete, and that also film projectors and the radio feared that movies and radio might replace teachers and make learning too quote unquote entertaining. Overhead projectors were there, calculators, personal computers, the internet, smartphones, and social media, all the way to learning management systems. And then now we have artificial intelligence. So I think that just goes and proves the point that there's always going to be something new that's going to be happening. The question is no longer, how am I going to just be afraid of it? How do I just lean into it and leverage it and utilize it, knowing that there's more advancements along the way, just leaning into it? How do we get rid of that fear for some teachers, do you think? Or even parents out there as well, or even people just in general?
I don't know that the fear is always teachers. I don't. And some of it is teachers, and some of it is districts, and some of it is states. I mean,
yes, but the teacher that is worried about using a prompt that's provided to them, they can just copy and paste, just get in and just like try to play around for a little bit in your favorite AI platform.
I think you go back to the why, right? Like, it's not here to replace you as a teacher. You are still the expert in the room. You need to be that expert. Like, I need you, if you are a social studies teacher, to lean in on what you know on social studies. But if it gives you space to create connection with your students and that human aspect of teaching, right? We hear like AI is going to replace teachers, and it's never going to be able to replace that true human connection and human touch that teachers have, and that is so necessary in the classroom. And if we can shift that mindset for them to view it as a tool to create that more, it lifts this part. So I have more space for this connection, or maybe you even have more space because it helped you with some feedback for students, like to spend time with your family, which then gives you that energy to be more present the next day, because you were well taken care of, because you used a tool to help leverage and lift that.
I think one of the activities that we've done before with teachers that I think kind of helps like segue their thought process with AI is twofold. The first one, it sounds very silly, but you give everyone a paper plate and they literally write down on this paper plate what is on their teacher plate. And then we can take these items and we can place them on a continuum of like which of these really require that human element, that relationship building, and which of these are more sometimes busy work that you could get assistance with, and that assistance being something like leveraging AI to take that lift off, right? And then really honing in on that 80-20 rule where AI could do 80% of this background work for you, but you still need that 20% of that human impact that's going to be able to bring the strategy and the creativity and the nuance and the expertise and all of the things that give that human element to what you are doing in the classroom. Because again, it comes down to being authentic. And if you are relying too much on AI, you're going to come across as being kind of robotic. It's just very like factual, and you lose that fun touch that we talked about. Like, how do we bring in the joy into the classroom? And then I just think of working with middle school students all the time. The kids are funny. Like,
Yes, that's why I love middle school. It was immature enough to laugh, but mature enough to, keep it in
yes, there
line.
are times where you really have to like censor yourself and try not to laugh in front of the entire classroom when someone says something that isn't
You realize
quite
that we're not that
appropriate.
different than we were in middle school
I
sometimes.
know. I very much have that middle school mindset. Like, bring in the seven to what you're doing. Like, incorporate their interests into the classroom. And sometimes that's where AI can't help you. It can't help you build a relationship with someone. That has to come naturally, or you've put in the
Right.
right work to harness that.
And we will be right back. Are you ready to take your K through 12 multilingual programs to new heights? Look no further than the experts at Kelly B's Consulting. We're not just consultants, we're partners in education, with a passion for empowering students and enriching your classrooms. At Kelly B's Consulting, we understand the unique cultural and linguistic needs of your diverse student population. Our team of experienced educators will work alongside you, tailoring strategies that transform your multilingual programs. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Visit www.kellybsconsultingllc.com today to learn more and schedule your consultation. Kelly B's Consulting, shaping the future of K through 12 multilingual education across the nation. Your success is our commitment. Contact us now and let's start building a brighter tomorrow together. And now, back to the show.
I want to piggyback off of that because you just said like how to incorporate their interests. And I think like this is where we start making this connection because AI is not going to understand you have that relationship with you, but because you, that human and that human connection, you found out their interests. You can leverage AI now to like figure out how do I put their interest of dance, gymnastic, sports, hiking, nature, whatever these things are. How do I incorporate that somehow into whatever I am teaching? Now that's where you can really leverage AI because you had that personal connection. You can do that not only with their interests, but also with their own cultures, like linguistically, traditions, celebrations
No
that
more
people have.
math word problems about 80 watermelons. Like
Right. It starts to now change that whole dynamic, right? And we've had conversations before just about how teachers have leveraged someone's culture and what they were doing when it came to a certain assignment that was based on a certain standard in language arts, math, social studies, etc. It's just so interesting. Like, what are you all seeing or experiencing, or what recommendations would you have whenever, for example, I'll put it in context. Got a phone call from a director in a school district asking for an understanding of some way to help teachers understand more about how to leverage what was happening linguistically in their classroom, but also culturally. And so I tried to send some prompts or some ideas that they could actually use. But there's a lot of teachers out there having these questions about how do I teach when I'm supposed to be teaching, but how do I incorporate this? And I try to tell people I need to teach you how to fish and not just give you the fish because there's going to be so many people busy, but you can always lean on AI. And if you know the right questions to ask, that can help get you there. What are some recommendations that you have for that, from the three of you and your perspectives? Leveraging AI, again, to help make those connections between their experiences, their interests, and also their languages and backgrounds and cultural backgrounds.
I think the starting point is how you're going to prompt whichever LLM that you are going to be working with. You have to give it a role. I need you to be a third grade teacher who is currently focusing on prepositions during the month of October. And we want to celebrate, Hispanic heritage and incorporate this into our lesson. How can I, marry these things together so that my students feel heard and seen in the work that we're doing together as a class? So sometimes our prompting, it is an art form, right? If you give a very basic prompt, you're going to get a very basic output. So what we are asking it to do, or asking it to kind of take on the persona of, is really important. So I feel like that would be my recommendation.
No, that's a great first start though. Yeah, because a lot of people probably just go in like it would be for Google. sometimes and just say, hey, I'm looking for this. And there's not like, but they're like, I don't like, what's your context? What's your area? What's your
I
scenario?
want to shout that out. Like, understand how AI, like basic large language models work. It's not Google. You are not asking a question and getting an index of answers. You are working with large language models, which are literally going through and filtering what they think the next word would be to create the response. So if I said Mary had a little
lamb,
you like think that that's what it's going to be. That's what the large language model is doing. So like having that understanding, and I love what I was thinking the exact same thing. Give it a role in your prompt, be very specific, give it background without personal information, but if you are in an urban district or a rural district and who you're working with, who are your students. The other thing I would recommend is I am all for the large language models, but make sure you're trying multiple ones. So, big ones with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. There's so many
There
of
are
them.
various ones out there, not promoting any of them, just
Not
those
promoting
are
any
examples
of them,
some.
but what I would say, make your prompt, once you've crafted a good prompt, it's very easy to have multiple tabs open with those different large language models and put the same prompt in and compare the responses that you're getting.
Well, because and how is that different? Because you have explained that to me before. Some of them are going to be predicting what, and then
So
versus other ones are going to
they're
be.
all a large language model, so they're all doing that, but they've all been trained differently.
Okay, that's how
And I do
training.
think it's
Yeah.
important. I am not promoting any which one, but it is important to know like who is behind it, right? So ChatGPT is OpenAI. Gemini is Google. So if you are a Google school district, Gemini might be very easily accessible. There's also Anthropic, which is behind Claude, and they're going to operate with different things behind them. I really like ChatGPT in a lot of ways because I like that it remembers who I am.
Yeah.
I work a lot with multilingual learners. For anything I ask now, it gives me multilingual scaffolds, and I love it because it remembers that about me. At the same time, sometimes I might put something in I don't necessarily want it to remember, and I want a higher focus on privacy. And from my experience, Anthropic and Claude is better for that. Anthropic and Claude is not going to remember that I work with multilingual learners. So when I go back in there, I have to say I would have to remember to do that. But from my experience, Claude is a little bit more empathetic, emotional, like connective, like
So if you need to feel good getting the feedback.
It's a different emotional intelligence. And Google gives me so much information that I often like comb through and pull out what I want, but sometimes that's what you want. So I really love, like I said, putting in the same prompt
based on your
multiple
desires.
ones, and then you can be like, oh, this was a good idea, but what if I married it with this? And that would be my other thing. Don't put in one prompt and just accept the output. Assess your output and make sure there's no bias in it. Like, is there, we've talked about this with some things, like if you talk about emergency certified teachers, a lot of times it will put out outputs that have high African American population in it. Like we assume they are our emergency certified teachers, which we know is not true. There will definitely be some bias in it. So making sure, like if I ask for an image for something, like, are all of my students white? Because that's not reflective of who's in there. So like that you're careful with those and you're assessing your output for bias. And also, like, is it like, do you know your standard? One thing I will always say is put the standard in full that you're working with. If you are working with Oklahoma Academic Standard in number sense 4.1 that has to do with positive and negative integers. I don't even know if that's it, but make sure you're actually saying what the full standard is, not just the numbers. There's definitely space for hallucination in that with the AI.
It's important to take all of that information, and if you are leveraging a platform like the sponsors, EduSkills, for example, or anything else, the point is go find a platform or a management system that has the information of the students who are represented in your classroom, and you can pull from there. And then also, of course, just by observing and seeing who's in your classroom. But I think whenever you can write down that information, again, not personal information, but just kind of those backgrounds, copy and paste, add that into a prompt or something, it at least just gives you more accessibility into trying to consider and think outside the box of what's typically represented. Are we talking about just this one certain type of a family, or are we bringing in different perspectives, even different words and different languages, and someone who might be standing and someone else who might be in a wheelchair? Like, what images are we bringing to the forefront to really be inclusive of the conversations? And you can leverage AI in so many ways for that. So that just goes back to that adapting to, managing, and institutionalizing that cultural knowledge throughout everything. AI does such a great job at helping facilitate that. Alicia, I think you had something that you wanted to say.
I was going to talk about EduSkills too. Like, if you are utilizing an AI platform, it's so great that you can just copy and paste. For instance, like EduSkills has its own ELAP form with goals for every kid, where they're at, what they need. And if you have a majority of the students who are in your class that are English language learners, you could take a goal that's pretty similar for all of them, put that into the AI with the standard, and you're looking for a way to teach that. You're looking for a way to bring culture in. That's like a great way, because the goal's already there. It doesn't even have to make it for you. Same thing with IEPs. If you want to take, if you have an overarching goal that a lot of your students have for math, and you teach math, and your 9 students on an IEP or whatever it is has a similar goal, you could copy and paste that into your language model and ask, what's the best way to teach this? Or I'm going to make a small group around this goal or whatever. And so utilize those things that a lot of places have already and just use those to prompt. I've never had a prompt too long. I've never had it like cut me off because I had too big of a prompt, because I copy and paste so much in there into a prompt. So, I mean, the more information that you give it, the better.
And not every state has an English language acquisition plan like we do here in the state of Oklahoma. Some other states do have them, and they're already embedded within standards. They take the standards that are from that language assessment, and then they couple them with their state standard. Every state might be a little bit different, or maybe more similar in other ways. But however, no matter where you are in listening to this, I would encourage you just to go and look at that language assessment and see what those standards are. And so you can just copy and paste those standards right in next to your state standard, and then generate that through the prompt. And that will at least help you. And even ask it again. This is about feeding, like teaching the right questions, like teach how to fish and not just give the fish. And then think of questions to ask it. Like, hey, I have students within these different language proficiency levels on here. And so, that might help guide and facilitate the conversation. All of that with a little asterisk next to it. Don't forget about some of our friends that we've had that have come in and that they are reading at a first grade level in English because they're just not learning English, but they read at the 13th grade level in Spanish or Mandarin or Tagalog or any other language, all right? So just remember that we have readers out there, and that this is the big takeaway. Language proficiency does not equate to cognitive ability. So sometimes whenever you're looking at those different proficiency levels, just know that that is just one small piece of a larger puzzle of helping teachers and students guide themselves into their language acquisition and mastery through those content areas. But it's asset-based lens. They're bringing in all the language that they need. It's just us helping transfer those skills between 2 different languages. 100%
And I think
asset-based.
AI has that, like me as a monolingual teacher, AI has been really helpful in that to say, like, I know that they know this. How do I incorporate this in a way that's accessible, while also honoring them and everything that they know and bring to the table. And it's been really helpful with translanguaging, finding cognates, even some of that stuff of like, I have this, what does this look like for my students? Like it can lift some of that load for you.
And it's difficult for teachers to understand all of these different concepts and like for everyone to be a master at everything. And I feel like sometimes, and I feel like this for myself, like I feel like I needed to know everything, and I just can't know everything. And so now I have a classroom that has a student with a 504 and also an IEP and an English language acquisition plan and the general education student and the other behavioral issues that are going on. And I also have our norm reference test window that we're going to be in, and I have and like it becomes so much. I love you all, you teachers. I love you. We all do. We are like
Teaching is overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but there really are some really nice ways that we can try to eliminate some of that extra work while still being totally inclusive. And so I really consider what it means to like look at our classes as a whole and then just work backwards from there. And then if you just come with that mindset that everyone is a language learner at some level, no one is that native born speaker of academic language, and we all learn better whenever we're exposed to each other's backgrounds and experiences and cultures, we all get better. So if that just becomes the lens, and then we can leverage that with that utilization of AI, it really makes the teaching process a lot more accessible in many ways, hopefully.
Yeah, the teaching process and hopefully the learning process, right? Like I think when we elevate every learner, like you're giving multiple opportunities to every learner. Like you mentioned all the different learners that we have in our classrooms. And it's hard as a teacher to remember each and every individual student that you have, but that's also the task, right? Like we learn best when we're seen, when you are recognized as an individual and who you are. And so the more tools that we can give teachers to help them do that for their students, I think the better. It alleviates a little bit off of them, but also gives them that power of connection and really allows them to elevate every learner.
And that's always my experience is that every time I'm with teachers, they are just always gung-ho and so excited about what they can do. Like whenever we start having these conversations, I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, they are excited. Like they want to learn too. These are different ways. Like this is what makes it so engaging. It's so much fun. And I know it changes me as a person even whenever I learn more about the students, because I've always talked about how they are the best professors that we could ever have. What are some ways, though, and connecting back just to like you all personally, it doesn't even have to be on the professional level, but how has leveraging the work that you've been doing in schools and education, your own past experiences, and then starting this company of SustainED to leverage AI to help in schools, changed or impacted you as a person now in your view and your mindset, helping all students to the best of your ability? How have you grown in that process?
I think for me, growing up and then just being in school as a student and then as a teacher, I always felt like I had to do everything perfect and that I had to be the best all the time. And I feel like I've been able to observe so many different environments and talk to so many other people that I've been able to take that step back and really be comfortable in not being the smartest person in the room and knowing that like everyone has so much to offer. Not that before I walked into a room and I was like, I'm at the top. But really being open to having those conversations and seeing other viewpoints into things. I felt like I kind of had tunnel vision almost in a way of X, Y, and Z is what's going to get you to the top. Like if you just do this, it's going to get better. And I feel like I have more of a holistic viewpoint of everything when I walk into a classroom and I can see the teacher for who they are and I can see the students for who they are and I can find these connections. I almost feel like beautiful mind background where there's like things going on. Find connections of how we can put all of this together and make it work and not force anybody to be someone that they're not or make someone feel uncomfortable in their space. I feel like one of the most important questions that I ask a teacher when I'm working with them is, how do you like to receive feedback? Would you prefer if I gave you this information up front and you took time to process it and then we had a conversation? Do you want me just to shoot it to you straight and give you bullet point, factual things? Do you need a more gentle approach? And I feel like just knowing yourself as a person and then being able to build up that relationship with whoever you're working with is imperative for you both to be able to grow through that process and through that journey. And I know sometimes it can be hard when you're delivering like one professional development. It's like you have 1 hour or 1 day with a group of very diverse learners and you have to figure out like, how can I try to meet the needs of everyone? And I feel like for me, when I am kind of like going through the information we're presenting, that's where I use AI a little bit more just to make sure that I'm not leaving anyone out, that I'm trying to make sure that I'm being as inclusive as I can when, going over these different strategies, knowing that some of them are going to be, like a home run and some are just going to be like an absolute strikeout. Like they're just not going to work all the time for everyone in every situation. So I feel like I have been able to have a broader view and really be more respectful of everyone and their individuality, because teaching is hard.
Yes.
Like, even the difference between when I was in the classroom and now, it's very different. It's constantly changing, which is like, on one hand, so beautiful, right? Like that we're constantly evolving and new things are coming in and we're just getting better. And on the other hand, it makes it difficult for someone who's not actively in a building or a classroom to easily lose touch with reality. And I feel like a lot of times when we see that happen, they default to just data. Like you're no longer a person or a building or like your community that you're building up. You are this point on this data wall, and you have to get better. Like that's always the bottom line. You have to get better. But being able to really take that step back and remembering like we're all human. I'm going to make mistakes. I make them all the time. And that's why I love working with other people like Alicia and Stephanie. Like, call me out. Be like, nay, that's wrong. Like, let's try that again.
I thought you were going to say that make more mistakes than me.
No, I'm not a perfectionist. I also developed like ADHD as an adult. So I have too many tabs open in my brain at any given time to be able to like sort through all the information.
All of us on some level are just a little bit of a mess, but in progress, right? But we're all in progress. We're all getting there. I think it's nice that how you like you take a step back and you ask those considerate questions about how they want to receive feedback. That was really nice to hear. That's really kind.
I think it was important for me because when I started out in teaching, no one ever asked me that. And having that perfectionist mentality of just the way I grew up and the experiences that I had, when someone would even tell me like, hey, you could be doing this, I automatically take that in as criticism. And I'm like, I'm the worst. I can't do this. And there's part of me mentally that just starts to shut down. And so knowing that if they had been like, a little more gentle with it, like maybe I needed more of a positive sandwich as a new baby teacher. Like you did this, we can work on this. And then this is going great. I would have been like, yeah, I can totally work on that part because I can get it up to par with everything else. So
I got to tell you though, being a new teacher though, or a new person in any situation, it does not matter your age. It is one of the most loneliest, intimidating spaces to be in. And you just, the more love and support that you can have around you and just compassion, empathy, and understanding, that's just what you need, because I can work 1,000,000 hours for you if I know that you have my back and you care about me. But if I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around you and you're just always judging me and I'm just never good enough, I burn out very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly. So I'm glad that you're doing that. All right, Alicia and Stephanie, there were some things that maybe you were going to say about these connections, about things that you've learned, how you've been impacted, how all this has been changing your perspective and your roles.
Well, I think that I came at this whole thing as like, this is going to be a service to people. Like, I genuinely don't like PD. It's weird as that sounds.
I always tell people, don't talk about me afterwards in happy hour and just complain. I want to like invite me if you do, but let's make it good.
Seriously.
I want a good PD.
I need to move all the time. Like, that's why education is a great profession for me, because I cannot stand to be a student. I cannot stand to like sit there and take in. So like, we all three think it's really important that the PD that we give is useful and applicable. There's nothing worse than like trying to teach math PD to like a music teacher and they're just like, cool, I'm here. So we like focus really hard on like, what can we do to make this PD engaging, useful, something they can use immediately, something that they can interact with? How can we make it engaging? And, how can we build in something in the PD where they can actually walk away with something usable from the PD that day? Because I've been to some amazing PD. When I say I don't like PD, I'm being a little bit cheeky. Like, I've been to some great PD that I loved, that I got a lot out of. And then I've also been to the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, I'm crawling out of my skin and I can't wait to get out of here. So we have worked really hard.
And it might have been good information. You just are like,
right. And I've taken something away even from what I consider not so great PD, but it's just difficult for me to just sit there and I'm just, maybe I'm a weirdo. But I think there's more people like me in education than not, because
they're called students.
We go into this job and like develop ADD. I think if we didn't have it before, because we have so many tabs open. Like Tracy said, we all have to focus on like, 100 things at once every single day. And so then when somebody's like, hey, just sit down and focus on this one thing, okay? You're like, I don't even remember how to do that anymore. So I think that it's just been eye-opening for me about how hard it is to really create things that are applicable and usable for the people that are going to be in the room. And like what Tracy said, it's been really great to connect with those people, learn about them, take a step back and notice that everybody's very, very different. What worked for me in the classroom is not going to work for them, and giving tools that are going to be able to be adjusted for any personality, any type of classroom.
Stephanie, you want to add anything?
Well, I just agree. I mean, so like I just in my head, like when we started this, our whole goal was like, we know what's on teachers' plates. Like we're in it. We are here with them. And there is not enough support for teachers that is great, or just education in general. And so in so many ways, just more and more and more just continues to get piled on. You are not just the teacher, you are the emotional confidant. You are required to keep them safe. You are required to teach them critical thinking. You need to be aware of always XYZ is changing. And then we're adding in testing and making sense of this data and pair it with this data. But remember who the student is, but remember your why. Like there's just so much. And it's so...
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so
be a counselor and be a nurse and be all the things.
Be all the things. And so in this
teachers
process,
are the heroes. Everyone needs to know this.
Teachers are the heroes. Like our people that are working with our students every single day. And I have kids, and I am so incredibly grateful for the teachers that see them for who they are. My kids have teachers this year that truly I've seen them interact with my kids and no, they know my son and who he is. And there's nothing that matters more to them in that moment. And I also know, I think that's also what's driven me in teaching. I very classically, pretty much always wanted to be a teacher, very kind of traditionally came into this, but with it, I had really great teachers and I had really bad teachers.
Yeah.
And they both had an impact, right? But the question is what type of impact are we going to have? Is it going to be positive or negative? And the more great teachers that we can keep in education, that's the bigger impact, positive impact for our students. In any way that we can help support that, if it's with a strategy, if it's with an AI prompt, if it's with I see you and I'm here with you, let's figure this out together because this is hard. Those opportunities is what have meant the most to me. And I think specifically getting to know you and getting to work with the stuff culturally and always being aware of that. And I've worked in multilingual schools with the majority, and then I've also not worked in that, and recognizing how much language acquisition really affects education. And I truly believe it's a space that the more we tap into it, the more gaps we're going to be able to close, because as we said, academic language is the second language for everybody.
Yes.
And also going into the why behind it. Why do we teach kids to write? Yes, you need to pass a test, but I also need you to be able to advocate for yourself and what you need.
Yeah. I wish that we didn't have to worry about that test component.
Right.
So
but
much,
truly.
I also say, and we said it together, if there's a game to play, you might as well win.
Right. Play to win the game. But why are we doing that? Why do I want to teach them to think critically? Why do I want them to be able to write? And
why am I doing this beyond the test?
Right. Because our teachers and our students are the people that are in the communities around us. They're the people that we get to live this life next to and with, and that will lead. And it's a privilege to walk alongside them in it.
In many of our communities, and thank you for saying that. That's really kind. It is a privilege to walk alongside them, and to be invited into these spaces as well, to have these conversations. But this utilization of AI can really help us create these holistic linguistic ecosystems for students that they need in their classroom. And I was 15 years old whenever I began learning Spanish. No one else in my family spoke Spanish. I was exposed to this, and then one thing led to another, and then now I can speak Spanish fluently. I'm so happy and so thankful for that. But our students also can be exposed to this, and some of them need that because it's going to help them with their scaffolding for linguistic support to make cross-linguistic connections. And then others are going to be exposed to that. They're going to help them become interested in culture and language as well. And all of this multiculturalism is just a benefit, and all this multicultural and multilingualism, multilingualism, that helps all of us together. Like this makes all of our boats rise. And so I just want to make sure to pause on that for a second, but also add in, just because whenever we talk about creating that holistic linguistic ecosystem, and we talk about things like translanguaging and cross-linguistic connections, this is just touching the bare minimum. This is not, because there are great researchers out there who really understand what this means, and there are books and books and books written about this. But not everyone can be a master at everything at all times. But I do believe, again, this is a good prompt that we can leverage to at least start those conversations into the understanding of, oh, if I ask it this question, this can give me an idea as an English-only speaking teacher of how to incorporate a cross-linguistic connection between these cognates, for example, and what this means. And AI can help you understand that. So you can be an English-only speaker with no background knowledge in language acquisition to still understand, hey, let me just ask my AI platform, how can I make this lesson accessible with this idea of metalinguistic awareness or cross-linguistic awareness or translanguaging opportunities or a holistic linguistic ecosystem or cognates specifically, or what can I do?
Sentence
so you don't have to be
the stems.
Yes, sentence frames, sentence stems, things just to help that process, because that skill of reading will still transfer and they will start making those connections. Because many times people feel like, I can't do this because I don't speak another language. And I say leverage AI. Again, all due respect to all of our researchers out there there is a lot of research behind this. But for teachers that are just in maybe an urban, suburban, or very rural area and just have no background in this, and they say, what do you mean how I can make a holistic linguistic ecosystem? One, it's just going to be your heart. You just want to do it. You want to just allow all these languages to be brought in and to be spoken. And I'm going to help you make sure you get it to me in English. But I think this would be beneficial because we can learn and elevate our vocabulary from others. But then two, the reality is if you only speak one language, how are you going to do it? Again, not all of it will always be 100% correct, but it sure is a great step to leverage that AI platform to help create multilingual resources for students. It's fun too.
It is fun. And I think this week, in some learning with some other educators, we talked about scaffolds and how so often like scaffolds, like you think like, oh, I need to make this more accessible. So a lot of times it gets watered down when really we need to think about scaffolds as scaffolding up to the level that they need to be at. Like we don't want to water things down. We want to give them content, grade level, appropriate things. And AI has been like a huge bridge in that, right? Like I know I can do this. I know I need to do this, but how do I get from X to Y? And even if it's just to get the thought process going, I might not use anything exactly that comes out of it, but it put me on the right track to get there.
Do y'all have any words of wisdom that you'd like to add to that?
No. I think I just want to tell teachers, it is that hard. We see you. Yeah. It is that hard. You're not crazy. I feel like I just needed somebody to tell me that my first year. And then now
right? Like it's okay. Unfortunately, this is kind of normal.
Like it's harder now than it was even when I started. And like, please use tools because it really is that hard and it really is that impossible. So you're not going crazy.
Yeah. I mean, leverage what's available to us so that you can get back to doing the things that really matter and you can invest your time in getting to know your students, but also taking care of yourself. I know that's such like a cliche, like self-care, but if AI is going to give you that hour so that you can go get your facial, then by golly, go do it. Like
not a bad idea. Okay, real quick, rapid round. What's one thing that you've learned from a student and from a teacher in this past year so far that you feel like has made you better? Again, one thing that you've learned from a student or a teacher that you feel like has made you feel like you've become better at what you do?
Kelly, I don't know.
Rapid fire.
Okay, I think from a student, and this isn't like information necessarily that I learned from them, I learned that not only are they super observant and that they're seeing everything and they're very inquisitive if you give them a moment to actually ask the questions and kind of prompt them instead of just giving them the answer. So really taking that inquiry approach, like they are so much smarter than a lot of times we give them credit for. And I mean that in the sense of like working with preteens in a middle school. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're like, oh, they don't know. They don't have that. But they do. They're just they're shy, they're timid. You've got to like pull it out of them. But just the side conversations I've had the privilege of having with some of the students when we do student shadows, where we follow a student the entire day throughout a grade level and just really to experience what it's like. Not only is it exhausting to be a student, but they are so smart. You've got to give them time. You have to work with them. And I know that's hard when you have a limited time with everybody, but give them the credit they deserve. Like, we can learn so much from them just as they can learn from us.
100%. Alicia, you have anything?
It's not new information to me, but I feel like I have to relearn it from different students. Like, every year of my career is just that their story behind their behavior will often just make their behavior make so much more sense. But as an adult, there comes a time where you're just frustrated. You're just frustrated with them, but then every single time, I'm always told every year, it doesn't, every single time, like, oh, then I found out their story and now I'm mad at myself for being frustrated with them. And so I feel like I have to relearn that all the time.
It's our human reaction. Seek to understand, but also give yourself grace and compassion, because it's a natural reaction. But yes, it's always good to remember that level of empathy. What is going on? There's a root cause to this somewhere. Yeah. But you also had 25 fires going out already. So you were just like, yes, we get it. That happens too much. And Stephanie?
Just the power of something fun and silly. Like, teachers will so often like bring me something that they're so excited like to see. And like, I will have been like in the bogs of data and they're like, but look at this and look at what it's working. And like, just the power of consistency and like finding those little wins in the day that our teachers are so good at, because again, they're the ones like walking each and every step and moment and minute with those kiddos. And it's just been like they are the best at like bringing you back to center and what really matters in education.
Well, I know that you all do fantastic work. I know that you've been into some places that have really appreciated your services. You present over at conferences. There is going to be information, again, just so you all know, that will be in the bottom of this bio. You can see SustainED, SUSTAINED, impactconsulting.com. And again, we will have that link in that bio. Very last round, quick question, just to make it fun. All right. This is something just to end it in a little fun way. What is something that always brings you joy? We're going to have a happy note. Always brings you joy. Stephanie, you go first.
Coffee.
Alicia, what's yours?
The week of Halloween at school every year. My favorite.
The week of Halloween at school. Tracy?
Plants.
And for me, it's the three of you and all of you out there listening. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you all are here. And I'm really honestly, I know that was real fun, but I really appreciate the three of you being here. Alicia, Tracy, Stephanie, thank you for all that you do in the field of education. Thank you for what you do for so many educators out there. And I'm so excited for you all and for Sustained Impact, empowering educators, motivating every learner. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Also, a big shout out to our sponsors and to our host. We have EduSkills, and a big shout out to Mike Overholt, who is our producer. Thank you all so much, and we all love you, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time on Cultural Connections Lab. Adios.
Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Adios.